The Albuquerque Police Department has been in the spotlight in recent years for police-involved shootings, and it's not just Albuquerque. Other cities are dealing with calls for reform, not only in the use of force by officers, but in how police shootings are investigated. U.S. Representative Michelle Lujan Grisham is backing a proposal in Congress to require special prosecutors in those cases. She sat down with our producer Sarah Gustavus to talk about the details.
Representative Lujan Grisham, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
You represent Albuquerque in Congress. Albuquerque's gotten a lot of negative attention recently for police-involved shootings. We talk on New Mexico in Focus about the coverage in Rolling Stone and the New Yorker. You've recently sponsored some legislation that would require special prosecutors in these cases of police-involved shootings. Why do you think that's the right step right now?
Well, it's one step of many to create a culture change and to restore trust. The problem that we currently have is that district attorneys and the police officers that they represent or work with, they're working together on prosecuting a perpetrator of a crime. So they're always on the same team. And it creates an inherent conflict of interest for that district attorney to then think about whether or not a fatal shooting or excessive force should be independently investigated. And with all of the concerns and issues and about creating culture change, this is one step to assure independence, and it restores accountability at many levels for police departments around the country. So special independent investigators for excessive force and fatal shootings.
And the legislation calls for those to be appointed by the governor. How do you keep politics out of that?
You know, I worry about all of that, but the reality is that the conflict of interest is really born out of the relationship between, a very close relationship between a police officer and those district attorneys. So they work with the same ones over and over again. So here, even though you've got a political known, an entity as the governor, that governor appoints an independent investigator. They don't have a relationship, and they're very clearly, their job is to work with the grand jury and determine whether or not there's been wrongdoing. So I think that even though you've got an elected official, the appointment itself is as far as the politics go. And then you've created an independent, completely independent opportunity for a special investigation. And I think that's what creates the protection.
Who do you imagine will be doing these investigations?
So I really think that you're going to want either prosecutors, and so you either have to re-recruit and you'd have to really create your own sort of conflicts check. So for example, if I recruited in this new special investigations team somebody from the Albuquerque DA's office, then I don't want them investigating a police issue, right, in Albuquerque. So they can do Grants or Gallup or Farmington, but they can't do it in Albuquerque because, again, then I haven't moved myself away from that special relationship. That's one place. You can also just get to lawyers who are involved in criminal law already and have they're a known quantity. They have the expertise and the training to deal with grand juries, and they're accustomed to looking at evidence related to criminal activity. So you can even get a retired state police officer who's now a lawyer. Variety, I think, of folks that would be great at this job, and there's no reason we wouldn't recruit from other states as well.
What have you been hearing from your constituents on this issue? Is that part of what this legislation came out of?
Well, you know, for me, it came out of really one thing, that while Albuquerque clearly has a problem, it is not an isolated problem. And if you look at what's going on around the country, really, this was born out of a congressional re-review of Florida, New Mexico, Missouri, New York, and unfortunately there are no dearth now of questions about whether or not has anyone been looking at the culture of police departments, what's the impact of, you know, when we're militarizing our training and providing that level of equipment, and have we had an independent review about whether or not we do have any wrongdoing related to excessive force? So that's where that was born. But I will tell you that we're hearing from constituents who believe this is one productive step towards restoring trust. And we have to have that trust. If we don't have trust between our community and our public safety officers, we have another host of problems that we're going to have to get addressed.
Do you think that just passing the legislation, knowing if there is enough to rebuild that trust, or is there more to be done in Albuquerque?
There's way more to be done. In my opinion, we have an entire culture shift, because it's not just the accountability factor after the fact. We want to prevent those issues from occurring. We don't want excessive force. We don't want fatal shootings. Just since January, we have more than 22 shootings in this community. So if we don't change the environment, and that means also on the other side, making sure that we're listening to our public safety officers about the level of crime and criminal activity in these communities, we can't shift the culture. But this is a step that's immediate, that you can do in the short term, that I think works very nicely with long-term investments to adjust the culture so that we have a synonymous, productive relationship between constituents built on trust and our public safety officers.
One of the things we've heard in some of the media coverage about APD and about this issue is that people need to understand what officers are facing, the dangers that they're facing on the streets. Do you think there might be some pushback in saying if you use a special prosecutor from a smaller community that maybe not understand the needs of an urban area or what urban police officers are facing in Albuquerque? Is that something that you imagine you're going to be talking about if in these debates?
I suppose that every issue is going to have some role in making sure that as we debate this legislation and these ideas, that we get it exactly right. But unfortunately, my response is that there is levels of activity and crime that are significant and dangerous in every community. And we know some are higher than others, but part of that training, because most of the police training really is centralized, so that training is basically all the same. So I don't think that we're going to have that sort of issue, that this is really an urban issue. It's not going to be fair to police officers in smaller communities. This is really also about providing protection to those police officers, because the assumption in a bad climate is every time you have a fatal shooting that it's the fault of that particular police department. That's also equally and unequivocally not true. It's to really get at where are the problems, what are they, getting them addressed, and then making sure that we don't minimize the respect for our police officers. But I want to end with, I do think Albuquerque has a significant issue, and we have to get it addressed. And all of these measures, I think, are productive and getting to the right place.
We know there's an issue here because the Department of Justice came in and did an investigation, has an agreement with the city now. How does your legislation fit into as things move forward with reforms in APD?
Again, I think it's a really strong parallel. It certainly does not interfere in any of the culture change requirements, the training, the re-reviews, the lapel cameras, the moving away from some of that military resources. So that's all going to stay in place. Rehiring, reevaluation, looking at some of those supervisory roles, all of that. Here, this is another way for folks like APD and the community and the Department of Justice to know that another independent review, when there is a question about excessive force or a fatal shooting, that's not being done internally. And that's really important, because the DA in that context is an internal mechanism, even if it's a separate government entity.
What do you say for a lot of DAs say, I can be objective, I'm an attorney, or I have this experience, I have to handle these ethical kinds of issues all the time, I can be objective?
I really appreciate the professionalism of all the district attorneys, and I agree that lawyers are trained to be able to do that. But in fact, outside of this area, we create very strict laws. One lawyer can't represent both spouses in a divorce unless there's very clear disclosure, and we do it exactly right because we know there's an inherent bias. You can represent one client, and the entire district attorney body is working too closely. And even if they're objective, people don't believe that you're objective because it creates a presumption. And that in and of itself is a problem that we have to address if you're building trust.
And how do you propose paying for special prosecutors? Where's the funding going to come from?
So the Department of Justice has funding already available for special training and for pilots and programs that enhance, right, both the public safety operations and the protections of the civilian population. So we envision that grant funding, which is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, is available now to states for this specific project. And the cost of that's going to depend upon how many states would be interested in drawing down the funds. And of course, my hope is all 50 states will do it.
And what's one final message you want to leave with the people that you represent and with New Mexicans right now on this issue?
That even though that many of these issues in their day-to-day are local issues, that every elected official, including your members of Congress, have an obligation to improve the public safety issues in their community and to improve the quality of life. And so I am dedicated to doing everything that I can to protect this community and to move us in the right direction.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.